Hello, friends, and welcome back to Civics Minute. Tariffs, as you may expect, increase the price of imported goods. But they don't necessarily just increase the price of imports by the amount associated with the tariff. To give you a great example, during the American Revolution, or in the lead up to it, all those taxes that you may have heard the patriots, the revolutionaries, being so terribly cross about were primarily tariffs on luxury goods imposed by the British Empire on its North American colonies. And they were, by percentage, very, very mild taxes. Like the famous tariff on tea was about 3%. But do you think that end consumers only paid 3% additional for tea or other imported luxuries? No. In many cases, while tariffs do increase the cost of imports directly, they also lead to merchants and resellers significantly increasing the price of imported goods in order to further increase their profit margin. Kind of like a form of price gouging, something we see very commonly with really impactful tariffs. But tariffs aren't just necessarily harmful for you, the consumer, when it comes to how much you have to spend for certain goods. They can also be harmful for producers, like the owners of major companies, especially those involved in industrial production of goods, tools, technology, and the like. Because think about this. Even if your car or your computer was made here in the United States, not every component of it was, and certainly not every raw material that went into it was extracted from American land. Subsequently, tariffs in the form of taxes on imported materials and components can have a really drastic impact on the cost of producing certain goods, and subsequently, the cost of operation for a lot of major businesses. And what can that lead to in pretty extreme cases? Well, it can lead to companies both slashing their workforces and their wages, which we've recorded happening numerous times in tariff-heavy countries over the 20th century, and also companies desperately trying to lower their prices and subsequently the amount of money they could make from certain goods in order to sell more internationally in order to kind of make up for the difference imposed by the tariffs. It's also worth noting, this is a big one, tariffs almost always invite retribution in the form of retaliatory or reciprocal tariffs. Both terms used to describe a process where a country, when it has tariffs placed on its sales in another part of the world, will impose tariffs on the country that tariffed it. Which makes perfect sense, right? If the whole message is, we don't want you selling your goods here in our country to make money for your business, for your workforce, and so on, but we also want to sell as many of our goods as we can in your country without restriction, are you, if you're in government, going to be very receptive to that? Probably not. And so, reciprocal tariffs can very quickly ratchet up between countries seeking to undercut one another's economic protectionism. And in extreme cases, this can lead to really contentious so-called trade wars, or exchanges of tariffs and other economic sanctions that tend to do a real number on commerce. So, tariffs generally have pretty significant negative impacts on the economies and workforces that they affect. Not always, not universally. There's some evidence to suggest that tariffs, very selectively applied, can be beneficial to countries with developing industry, those where large industrial factories and foundries are just being built, or where smaller volumes of domestic products are being made and sold. But in post-industrial countries like the US, much of Western Europe, and much of Central and East Asia, there's not going to be very much direct benefit associated with tariffs based on the research I've done.